What a project. I watched it last night. I couldn't really sleep afterwards because I was kind of crying so much.
Sorry.
Well, don't apologise, that's the magic of film, but in terms of kind of researching for the project, getting to that real nitty gritty, that process must have been tough for both of you. One as an actress, getting into that mindset, and then as a director, aiming to kind of tackle those sorts of subjects.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a 14-year journey, so information was gathered, in parts, and I feel like the effect on me, it was spread over a number of years, so it was easier for me initially, but I always knew that I needed it to be authentic, and the more research I did, unfortunately, the more grim things were. So it was an interesting balance with the writers weaving the screenplay together to make sure that we put forward together something that was realistic and that had hope at the end at least. So it's not completely as awful as things are, and as bad as the stats are. It's not a lost cause completely. So yeah, it was a process for me. I feel like for the actors, maybe it was slightly different because the period of time was shorter, and it was almost like they were injected with this drug that they now had to deal with.
Yeah, it was hard. It wasn't easy because I ended up meeting a lot of girls who had been trafficked or kidnapped or, victims of gang rape, somebody sold by their family members or sent to the city for a job. And it was really heartbreaking. You understand the rural and urban divide in India very clearly when you see that people are so naive that they would send their pubertal daughter to the city to get a job with one faraway uncle, not knowing where she will end up. And once she's polluted, no one will accept her back. So there's nowhere else for her to go but to be in that brothel in those surroundings for the rest of her life, however long she survives.
And how was it for you as an actress then putting yourself kind of in that position and getting into that mindset? That must have been really tough for you.
It's really hard. It was really hard. I couldn't believe that people would... I had to see a shrink after because I couldn't believe people would do this to each other routinely. There are stages in which a pimp would break down a girl's confidence or desire to not give in. And, there's emotional abuse, there's psychological abuse, there's physical torture. One of the girls I interviewed, she had cigarette stub marks all over her arms, and it was all... Don't feel so bad. She's a hairdresser now.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, she's liking the glamorous job.
Yeah, she sort of was able to, with the help of an NGO, to get out of this and really start life afresh in whatever way that she could. So yeah, I mean, it was hard. It was really hard. It still is hard. I meet a lot of people routinely who see the film, either they just come and hold me and cry or they can't believe that this is happening. And I think one of the reasons why the film didn't do very well in India in terms of box office numbers, and I think that's because we know it to be true and it's so uncomfortable to digest. It's like
people don't want to actually be confronted with the truth of
Exactly.
what's going on.
It's like global warming, no one wants to talk about it, but it's there.
Do you think this film will actually start a conversation? And if not, do you think it should?
I think so. I mean, I think that in India we definitely left an impression. We started a conversation. We had people talking about it, even though they didn't want to. In the US so far, even in the UK, the screenings that we've had fantastic Q&As. They're great discussions. So I feel like it's headed in the right direction, where we're getting good reactions, and people want to talk about it, and so they're becoming slightly more aware. And whether it's someone watching the movie that happened again a couple of weeks ago, and they went out and wrote a check to an NGO, just because they felt like they needed to do something, and that's really interesting.
What do you guys want people to actually get from the movie? What message?
I mean, part of the reason why we are here in this country and in London is because it just gives the film more validation for the Indian crowd or the Asian countries. People can talk about it. People can understand that this is something that needs to be faced. And if if that's one of the key catchment areas for global trafficking that needs to be addressed in terms of legislation, in terms of more awareness and education. So we're hoping that a conversation starts here and goes all over the world.
And then also finally kind of bringing the movie kind of back to Hollywood as well, having actresses like Frieda Pinto and Demi Moore work on this project as well. How was that for you as a director?
Look, it was great. I mean, the whole point of this film was to bring it back home. And when I mean home, I mean LA or the Western world, because then suddenly the reaction is different. It's not happening far away in India or China. It's happening right over here in the Western world, in our countries, and it's down the street from us. And I think that changes when someone watches it, because they realize that it can happen anywhere. And obviously, Demi has her own NGO that she started with Ashton years ago, which again fights child pornography using technology. She and I, we've been on panels before, so she was she wanted to help, and that's why she did the part. So that was fantastic.
Perfect, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.